Hello everybody, it is Ouroboros Viewer here. I am going to show you how to build, kind of. I'm going to explain to you talents. I'm going to start with the gun talents. We're going to start from the top left and make our way down to every single one. We're going to talk all about every single one. We're going to skip the specializations. Then we're going to talk about the named, well, we'll talk about only the exotic ones for the exotic gear. Then we'll talk about skills, and we'll go from there. So it's gonna be a long series. So we will start with the rifles, and they're in the library and the talents. A lot of the guns have the same talents, so I'm just gonna go quickly over them, and then I will talk about the gun specific ones, because the gun specific ones are right here. These last three ones for the rifles are there's only there for rifles. If we look at the next gun for the assault rifles, and we go to the bottom, you don't see them. You see measured, you see near sight, you see on empty, and you see overflowing. For the rifle, for the sniper rifles, then we see naked, first blood, and lucky shot. So let's get started then. So breadbasket. Was an amazing talent back in the day. What breadbasket does is landing a body shot adds a stack of bonus 35% headshot damage to the next headshot for 10 seconds. So the max stack is 3. So if you hit somebody in the body 3 times, you're going to hit them in the head for 105% headshot damage, which is very good in PvP back in the day for like assault rifles, SMGs and stuff like that. Shotguns, because headshot damage used to be a lot better back in the day. Now breadbasket is a mediocre talent. You could use it if you want. It's just fun to play with, but headshot damage isn't that valuable anymore. Especially since it's so its criteria is if they have a head. A lot of the enemies now don't have heads or have body armor, so it's no longer any good. Killer. Killer is still a pretty good talent. It's not the best talent you could use, but it's still a decent talent. So killer is killing an enemy with a critical hit grants 40% critical hit damage. 40% critical hit damage is nice and all, but it's not amazing, right? You would want more weapon damage, because critical hit damage is based off how much weapon damage you have. Then it gets, then it does this little multiplication on it, and then the critical hit damage tells you how much it is, right? So if you multiply the base damage by 40% critical hit damage, you get, I don't know, 140, let's just say that. But then if you have a higher base damage, like let's say double it, then you give it 40% critical hit damage, right? Then you get 280. So you want more base damage than you want critical hit damage, but you want to get as much critical hit damage as you can, but not from a weapon talent. Optimist, arguably one of the best talents in the game. I would argue against it, but other people will tell you it's good because it has no conditions to fulfill, which is very nice. So all the criteria for it is just shooting it. It's just having shot the thing, and you get weapon damage. In the beginning, you get 0 bonus. Then once you're 10% gone, you get 3, all the way to 27. The max you could get is 27, because at 30%, you have an empty magazine. So it's a very good talent. If you're struck for choices, this is a safe bet, I would say. Preservation. Preservation is a PvE only talent. You cannot use this in PvP, and even in PvE, it's lackluster. So killing an enemy repairs 10% armor over 5 seconds. Headshots improve the repair by an additional 10%. So if you get a headshot on somebody, you repair 20% of your armor. That's nice, but you have to kill the enemy to get the buff, and that's okay and all, but you could just heal instead, or get like a healing hive or something. Because on higher difficulties, this won't be that good. Strained. Now, strain used to be the most powerful talent for the guns. Gain a stack of 10% critical hit damage for every 0.5 seconds you are firing. Stacks up to 5 times. So you could get 50% critical hit damage. Excuse me. So that is good, but you have to be firing for at least 2.5 seconds in order to get the max stuff strained, which is okay. With rifles, you can do that pretty easily. But 50% critical hit damage isn't it's good. It's really good, but let me talk about close and personal, right? So if you compare it to like something like close and personal, you have to be within 7 meters to grant 30% weapon damage. Now this is a good talent. So this is better than Optimus if you could get it, if you could be that close to somebody and kill someone. But the stipulation is you have to kill somebody to get the buff, and it only lasts 10 seconds. So you can get more damage output than Optimist if you could keep this buff going. But you have to kill people. You have 10 seconds to kill somebody else. That's pretty good. But you have to kill somebody within 7 meters, which is the problem. Is when are you gonna be within 7 meters of somebody? Is that your playstyle? Are you a sniper? This is no good. These are for rifle talents, right? So I'm objectively every single day I'm going to say, are you a close and personal rifle guy? Because if you're not, then you can't use this talent. Next is go to fast hands. Critical hits at a stack of 4% reload speed bonus. Max is 40. So if you get the magazines on the rifles aren't that high. They go from anywhere from 10 to 20. Some have 30. So this is just for reloading purposes. But I would rather have weapon handling instead than this because it gives you no objective bonus besides reload speed. So weapon handling will do much better because it gives you stability, accuracy, reload speed. It gives you all that than a talent like this. Sadist. Now Sadist is a very good perk. Sadist is one of the best perks because it's very simple to activate. Bleeding enemy. Bleeding enemies are very simple now, especially with the new ongoing directive. So this is a very good talent to have because a lot of things include bleeding. So many things include bleeding. The Ridge Race Pride, the Stinger Hive, you know, it's very easy to activate. And also you can activate it after you get 4 kills and you apply bleed to the next enemy. But that part's not that good. The best part is just the damage to bleeding enemies. Vindictive. Killing an enemy with a status effect applied grants you and all allies within 15 meters of you specifically 15% critical hit chance and 50% critical hit damage. Vindictive is a very good perk. I wouldn't say very good. I would say it's a decent perk. Because if most people build for 50% crit chance and then as much crit damage as they can, you know, they at least go for 50% for the bare minimum. Some people are like a 49, which isn't that great. So Vindictive helps them get to max crit chance, which is amazing for the damage output. Max crit chance is the best you want to be at, and then the extra critical hit damage is nice for extra damage. But it only lasts for 20 seconds, and then you have to kill somebody else like that, and they lose a buff, which I personally think there's a lot of these talents are bad and need a buff in some sort of way. If they buff this for maybe a minute, a lot of people will be using them often. Ranger. Ranger is one of the best perks you can put on a rifle or a sniper rifle. So Ranger amplifies weapon damage by 2% for every 5 meters you're away from the target. So if you can get somebody 50 meters away, which not very likely, mind you, you could get a 20% weapon damage amplification. It's nice and all, but most likely they're going to be 15 meters away or 20, maybe 30. So 15 meters away, you get extra 6% weapon amplification, but it's a very easy one to activate, right? So this is a pretty decent talent for rifles, pretty good. So I would use it. I've used it sometimes. It's not that bad. Steady-handed. Again, this is much like fast hands. Hits grant a stack of 1% accuracy and stability. 100% stack, 100 stacks. Consume them and refill the magazine. Basically, what it is this is more like an LMG talent. This is no good because this would be like 5, 6 mags in, and then you get your magazine back. It's no good. If you need help shooting, you could use this time for sure. Because after you hit some people, your accuracy and stability goes up. So after the first magazine, you got 20% accuracy, 20% stability, or how so? It can help you out if you need help with shooting. You can use this one. But for damage purposes, no buff. But it's if you mean in damage purposes for actually hitting your shots and getting the damage that you missed out on, you could use it like this. Spike, I would say Spike is a bad talent because headshots grant 20% skill damage for 15 seconds. One, other things give you skill damage now and much higher than this, and you have to get a headshot for it. The duration on it is pretty nice though, 15 seconds. That's a good time. But there's other talents in this, and we'll get to them. Ignited. Ignited's like Sadist, but Ignited's a little bit harder to proc. Um, I wouldn't recommend using this unless you're going with a full fire build, or somebody else is going with a full fire build and you know it. Because Ignited, burning enemies are less likely to apply than Sadist. And again, every single talent like this that gives you 20% buff to burning, bleeding, blind enemies, after 4 kills, the next hit makes them burn. Eyeless, probably one of the worst ones from this entire trend. They have 20% weapon damage to blind the enemies. You don't blind enemies in this game as much as you could. If to be fair, this probably should be like 40% or higher because it's hard to blind enemies and they do not stay blind for long. Now, preparation. This is a good skill talent. It's not really for the gun itself, it's for the build. So preparation, headshots grant 50% status effect and duration to the next status effect you apply. I made videos about like a lot of things, but this is mostly for skill builds that are, if you're using trauma, this would be good for you, and then you swap to another gun. But basically, it just you headshot somebody, then whatever build you're running, you blind them, you bleed them, you put them on fire, and it gives you extra damage on that, and it lasts 50% longer. Well, 50% status duration longer. It's not 50% longer base, but it's still a very very nice talent. Reformation. Headshots grant 30% skill repair for 15 seconds. This is if you're going for a healer build. It's a pretty okay for a healer build. So you would just be in the back, snipe somebody in the head real quick, or using the rifles, just hit them in the head real quick, and you get a little bit of skill repair. Now, in sync, one of my favorite talents. So in sync, hitting an enemy grants 50% skill damage for 5 seconds. So what it means by hitting enemies means shooting them, right? So if you shoot somebody, your skills get 50% skill damage. But using a non-shield skill or damaging an enemy with a skill grants 50% weapon damage for 5 seconds. So basically, if you hit somebody with a skill or you use a skill, you just use something skill-based, it gives you 50% weapon damage. However, you either have 0 damage or you have 30 damage. Because the last section, damage is increased by double while both buffs are active at the same time. So what it really says is, think about it like this. If you're using it in sync, you either have 0 damage or you have 30% damage. Because in order to get the damage for the thing that you're not using, well, the other thing, So both buffs are activated separately, but they buff the other one, right? Because my skill buffs my weapon, and my weapon buffs my skill. But in order to get that extra damage from both of them, you're gonna have to use them both at the same time, which is in sync. And well, in sync, you get 30% skill damage and 30% weapon damage. So you either get 0 or you get 30, and they last for 5 seconds, but they continue, right? So it's 30. You hit one with a skill, you add an extra 5 seconds. You hit one with the gun, you add an extra 5 seconds. Then you get the big buff, and those last for 5 seconds. But as long as you hit them with a skill again and you hit them with a gun again, this could stay on forever. Even when you reload, as long as you're not using the LMG, you could definitely keep this buff active after you reload. It is a very nice buff because that skill damage helps out a lot in PvE and in PvP, and the weapon damage helps out a lot in both as well. So this is my favorite talent here. Very nice. Future Perfect. Weapon kills grant 1% one skill tier for 15 seconds. Stacks up to 3 times. So with Future Perfect, you go from skill tier 0 to skill tier 3, or skill tier 3 to skill tier 6. And if you have skill tier 6, you could overcharge. But the overcharge cooldown is for 90 seconds, which is very unfortunate. But this is a very nice talent for skill-based, hybrid-based players. Very nice talent here. It is very fun to play with. You could build around skill and weapon damage or whatever, because Future Perfect allows you to get to higher skill tiers, but you have to kill somebody, which might not be easy or might not be the greatest, but not many people run Future Perfect because it's very hard, and the buff doesn't last for that long. It lasts for 15 seconds, which it should really last for longer. Flatline. Flatline's one of the best weapon talent perks for weapons that have a laser pointer. This is definitely the highest damage talent you could put on it. So Flatline amplifies weapon damage to post enemies by 15%. After 3 kills, it applies post to the next enemy you hit. So since it amplifies, it is the highest damage talent you could get on anything. Insync gives you 30% weapon damage, but it's not amplified. So amplified is a type of multiplicative that it amplifies it at the end. It doesn't add onto it. So weapon damage is additive, and amplify is multiplicative. It's very hard to understand. You just have to you have to learn the math in order to see it. But amplify is usually better. So Flatline is definitely the hardest hitting talent you could get, but you do have to use engineer for it, the technician. You do have to use the technician specialization to get the laser pointer. Otherwise, you lose out on so much damage here because it's hard to pulse somebody unless you're using the actual pulse. But at that point, you might as well use Sadist if you're going to go through that much effort or in sync. But Flatline, if you use the technician build, which helps out your teammates 0, it helps out your teammates absolutely 0. Technicians do not help out your team at all, right? So the way they balanced it is they gave technician no team buff. Well, it didn't really give him any team buff, and they give it a talent which makes it hit harder. But if you had a team set up appropriately with firewall, survivalist, sharpshooter, demolitionist, or whatever, you can hit harder with InSync than you can hit with Flatline. So Technician's a very greedy build because it gives you that skill tier and it gives you this talent that's amazing, but it does not help out your team. So your team will lose out on a lot of damage because you're running Flatline. So if you have a proper team setup, if you use talents like InSync, Sadist, and stuff like that, that team will beat Flatline because Flatline team will only help out themselves and not their teammates. So remember that for PvP and PvE because it both works for both of it. Now, Sledgehammer. Sledgehammer is an amazing talent. However, it is broken at the current moment and it does not let you apply it to your guns, which is some BS because this talent would be amazing in PvP. It could work in PvE too, but it's a lot harder to work in. Well, it's hard to work on both of them. But this is a very good talent for killing bosses and killing people. If you if you're in the level 10 floor farm and you throw a fire grenade at the wall where they spawn, this will be a very good talent. So dealing damage with a grenade applies a mark on the target. Targets with marks will take 30% more damage and have a 20% movement debuff. Marks will disappear after 10 seconds. That 30% damage to armor is a lot because it's not like weapon damage or crit chance where it adds a little bit. This is a lot because it's damage to armor, which is amplificative. It amplifies it. So it's a lot more damage than you think. So it is a very nice talent. Also for PvP. If you hit somebody with a sledgehammer PvP, they're not gonna live for much longer. Boomerang, one of my favorite talents. Oh man, this reminds me of one is none back in Division 1. So critical hits have a 50% chance to return to the magazine. If a bullet is returned, the magazine the next shot has a 40% increased damage. That is a very nice one. So basically it gives you a bullet back so you can keep shooting, especially for like an M1A, and it gives you a 40% damage increase for the next shot. Amazing. That's very nice. But Rifleman could be better if you hit a lot of headshots. So landing a headshot adds a stack of bonus of 10% weapon damage for 5 seconds. Max is a stack of 5. So basically you can get 50% weapon damage increase with Rifleman if you can hit 5 headshots in a row within 5 seconds, which is a lot, and there's a lot of headshots. So if you're an amazing shot, Rifleman could be for you because this is the hardest hitting talent in this tree. It will hit harder than the Flatline for sure because 50% weapon damage is a lot. But Boomerang is also very nice because it gives you magazine back. Lucky Shot. So usually you see on the Baker's Dozen for perfect Lucky Shot, but Lucky Shot is a pretty nice talent. So magazine capacity is increased by 20%, which is meh. Missed shots from cover have a 100% chance to return to the magazine. Now that is a very good talent, right? So let me show you what Lucky Shot does. Since it's the last talent here, we will just show you what it does because I used it for my sniper rifle. So Lucky Shot is an interesting talent because it doesn't give you a damage increase, but since you're not missing any shots, it is a damage increase because you don't miss your shot. So for instance, so you could shoot forever. Like forever. Like you don't miss any shots. As long as you're in cover, you can even aim. Well, I hit something over there. I don't know why I hit. But if you shoot over cover, you can just hit the target like that, and they can't damage you too much. Like that. Every single shot was a hit. If I miss, I go back to the target. Nice little hit. So it's a very good talent, especially for PvE. It is just nice to not have to get shot at in order to shoot somebody, especially in a dangerous situation. But it's not the best talent you could have. It's very nice if you're going for headshots though. For instance, if I'm just going for straight headshots and I miss, I still have the bullet to go for more headshots. So let's go over the talents again for rifles real quick, and I will tell you if they're good or not. So rifle talent number 1, breadbasket, mediocre. You could use, I would suggest not to. Killer, mediocre. Don't use it. Preservation, bad. Optimist, good. Strain, mediocre. You could use it if you want. Close and personal, depends on your play style. If you're close to the enemy, very good talent. If you're not, bad talent. Sadist, good talent, very amazing talent. Most enemies are bleeding nowadays. Fast hands, bad. Vindictive, good for a team buff if you're a team player. But then also have a secondary weapon for with situations where you don't have the buff or when you can't activate the buff. Ranger, good. Spike, bad. Steady hand, bad. Eyeless, bad. Ignited, decent if you're running a fire build or your teammates running a fire build. Reformation, only for hero builds. Preparation, only for stats effect builds or skill builds. Future Perfect, if you make a build for it, it could be very good, but it's very difficult to use. Insync, amazing, love it. Sledgehammer, amazing, but yeah, you can't use it for most rifles at the moment. Flatline, amazing, hardest hitting talent on the tree. Rifleman, amazing if you're good with headshots. Boomerang, amazing because extra bullets and extra damage on it. Lucky shot, very good. So that's my opinion on the talents. Remember, you had to build around the talents. The talents are part of your build. So you had to know what you're using and what you want from your talents. Because talents and builds go hand in hand. You can't just use a normal DPS build and you say this and expect everything to be fine. You would have to use a Stinger Hive, or you had to depend on somebody using a Stinger Hive. Ranger, if you're point blank to the enemy, you're not getting anything from Ranger. Like you had to learn that builds are more than just the gun talent and the build pieces. But those are the rifles. Hope you enjoyed it. Don't use some talents. Some talents are just bad. They're not meant to be used anymore. Alright, enjoy building.